Okay. All right. So, hi, welcome to our November 13th Jupyter community call. I'm Martha. I'll be your host today. This is just a place for Jupyter contributors to connect with each other, talk about what they've been working on related to Jupyter. Uh, Definitely want to give a special welcome to any first-time participants. Please join in on discussions, ask questions, feel welcome. We also ask that people sign in on the HackMD. So if anyone can do that that hasn't already, that would be great. Uh, as you know, it's being recorded, so just keep that in mind with any discussion. Also, this is a part of the Jupyter community, so we follow the Jupyter Code of Conduct. That's at jupyter.org/conduct, and I think I'll post that in the chat as well. Yeah, so with that, let me just check out the agenda. We have a little short reports, celebration, and shout out section. I think right now the only thing is just to call out to the Jupyter calendar, especially for new people. This is a way that you can find any meetings that you might be interested in. So you can see that in the link to that in the HackMD. Yeah, so I'll start. I see that Fernando is the first person on the agenda. If you want to go ahead, Fernando.
Yeah, and I'm here with Anna. Hi, everyone. I am Fernando, and Anna and I think we're the only two today from the Executive Council, but we wanted to give you some news. I don't have any formal slides prepared, but we just wanted to give you a brief kind of summary of the recent transition process to the Linux Foundation and answer any questions that anybody might have. So in kind of to summarize a process that took probably well over a year by this point. Back in 2023, we started discussing, there have been discussions for a while, kind of on how can we grow the project and meet the needs of the project where it is today. To give a little bit of historical context, when back when we were still called IPython, and Brian Granger and myself were kind of two people working solely in academia, we would write academic grant proposals, and we were able to get some funding. IPython was probably one of the first big open source projects to get significant academic funding back then. And that model worked for a while. We were able to fund a team of people. Anna was originally hired through those grants. We paid our own salaries for a period of time. We hired other people who are now part of the community. And we had a few such grants. The last big one that Brian and I wrote was in 2015. It brought in about $6 million from three different private foundations and had a big impact in the infrastructure that we have today. And I think it helped kind of set the stage for a lot of this growth. But today, it's not really realistic to continue managing a project like that with a handful of people writing solely academic grants. I think that type of mission will continue to be important, and there will be areas where that's a viable strategy, but it's not going to sustain the project at the scale we have. And so we wanted to explore ways to grow the project, and we kind of took a very broad look. We looked both at staying at focused, looking at other potential organizations that could be perhaps better fits as a home for Jupyter today. We looked at potentially even starting our own standalone organization. We are a project of a size where that would probably be realistic, but it is also a phenomenal amount of work. Creating a standalone foundation organization is doable, but it is a ton of work. And ultimately, after lots and lots of fairly specific and detail-oriented diligence, we thought that the Linux Foundation offered an ideal combination of features for the project in terms of still allowing us to do that kind of more traditional fundraising if we needed it. They have a very deep industry engagement program. The Linux Foundation today is home to many industry affiliates who provide support for various open source projects that they're interested in. And the Linux Foundation has kind of a very efficient infrastructure for that purpose. They also have other types of infrastructure that are available to their projects from our investigations seem to be a good fit for Jupyter in terms of teams for events, for activities, engineering, all kinds of kind of support infrastructure, extensive data collection that they can help us with to navigate kind of our decisions. And as we engage them in discussions, they proved very open to effectively saying to us, we will work with you in your terms. Tell us what your governance is, and we will make sure that obviously we need to fit a few of our legal constraints, but that we meet you where you are. And this proved true over time, over and over. We eventually fleshed out some ideas for this. We submitted them to the community. There were open discussions on GitHub. The links, we all have them, and we could put them in the agenda later if need be. And eventually we took a vote a few months ago. We took a vote for whether to move from NumFocus to be hosted under the Linux Foundation. The vote was a positive one. That vote was taken between the Executive Council and the Software Steering Council. The vote was a net positive. There was one negative vote, I think one or two abstentions. Forgive me for if I don't have the exact numbers in my head, and a vast majority was a yes. So we are currently completing that process. We have finalized the legal aspects of the process. We have finalized the kind of the paperwork of transferring assets. The key assets that we have were some funds that remained at NumFocus and things like copyrights and domain names. That has been done. That process has been completed. We signed the legal agreement that transferred us from NumFocus being our legal home to the Linux Foundation. And the key element to keep in mind, if you kind of forget everything I said, keep two things in mind. On the one hand, the day-to-day technical and community governance of the project does not change. The Executive Council and the Software Steering Council remain kind of in charge of our community and software development practices, and that part of our governance has not changed. What happened is under the Linux Foundation, other than it being kind of this organization that provides the services I described, there's a new entity, and a new entity is called the Jupyter Foundation. This new entity is an industry fund where companies and nonprofits as well, obviously we seek higher amounts of funding from for-profit organizations than nonprofits, but the Jupyter Foundation is a fund where companies can contribute resources. And obviously, they have some say on how those resources are allocated. But that is different. Deciding and kind of approving a budget is different from telling the project what to do, right? The community continues to drive the project. The community continues to build the project. And now we have these resources, and we will partner. These are organizations, by the way, that are already using Jupyter. And so in some ways, they were already participating. And now what we have is a space where we can engage with them directly. And the big task that remains, right now, we're kind of in the thick of fundraising to create that fund. We expect to make an announcement with the initial companies that are providing funds kind of on day one. Day one for that is next week. So please hold the drum roll for a few more days until we make the announcement of which companies are kind of participating on day one. Those of you who have industry connections, please, if that hasn't happened already, encourage your bosses, your managers, your leadership to participate in this. It is a wonderful way to support the project, and we're happy to give you more details. And then the key thing will be for us to provide mechanisms for the community to propose ideas. What could team X in the community do? What could the security team, what could the accessibility team, what could the community team, etc., do with a certain amount of resources? And I think the process, if this is successful, it's going to be because it is a healthy back and forth between companies that provide resources and manage effectively this budget through this, it's called the Foundation Governing Board is the name of the team that will manage that fund, and the community presenting proposals, ideas, and making effective use of those resources. It's kind of a new era for the project. I am very optimistic. We've worked very, very hard. I am very happy with where we are, but we are happy to answer any questions, and hopefully this is going to help us continue grow in a more sustainable fashion over the next few years. The project has gotten much bigger than any of us could have imagined 10 years ago, and hopefully this puts us on a good footing to continue growing in a healthy and responsible way. So Anna, did I miss any important points?
The only thing I would add is I'm posting it into the chat now, is information on how people in the community can reach out directly to the executive council. So we have office hours on Thursday. We have an email list. We have a public page where you can post an issue. There's a couple of different ways to reach out to us. So if people have questions that they don't want to ask here or they want to ask in the chat, please do reach out to us.
I also dropped into the chat the Jupyter Foundation homepage, which is kind of a landing page right now, but if anyone you know is with an organization that's interested in joining the Jupyter Foundation, that has a form to fill out to express interest.
Super helpful. Thanks, Jason.
Thank
Also,
you, Jason. And
Fernando,
Zach is here. I just
yeah,
saw the
that's what I
chat.
was about to say.
Zach is here. So Zach, if I forgot anything that you'd like to, or if there's anything you'd like to add.
Okay, I do think we should move to the next presenter because we have 5 more people signed up in 50 minutes. So let's see, who's the next? Eric Charles on elastic kernels from pyodide to GPU. Oh, are you sharing your screen? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, hello, Jupyter community. So I don't know how you came to this community, but for me, my first contact was the NB viewer. And I thought it was very, very impressive and useful. So I just clicked, I remember, on the signal processing page, and I came to this notebook. You know, this is a read-only notebook. I cannot run it. And I said, well, this is an image, fine, but I scroll down. I'm a coder, so this block talked to me, and I realized, well, I now can create matplotlib, right? So I'm Eric. As I said, I'm part of this community, but I am also the founder of a startup which is called Data Layer, which does accelerate Jupyter. So what do we mean with acceleration? For sure, we are in the AI and GPU era. This is one thing, obviously, where people want to use GPU. But we also want to make sure you don't spend your money for nothing. So if you don't need those GPUs, still you want to accelerate your knowledge or your sharing capacity, this is something we do. And how we do that? Well, this is a bit the goal of this demo. I'm gonna explain you a bit how you can move from that wonderful read-only analysis. And we picked a very classical example. So this notebook, which is hosted on our platform, what it does, I'm going to show you very quickly. And so as a notebook user, you are used to those diagrams. And what we do, we grab the PyStat information for various packages, JupyterLab and bClassic Notebook, and we plot that. And simply by viewing that, I guess I can tell you, well, people don't download the weekends, right? So this is already a good outcome simply by viewing this notebook. And maybe I want to know more. Maybe I want to infer, is it a holiday? Is this day an holiday based on the download of the stats? So to do that, I need to do more. I need to run a kernel. And at Data Layer, what we do, we put kernel at the first place. So I think the notebook has got very much success based on this mixed code and output, but the kernel has been a bit left behind. So we care a lot about managed kernel. And now from this read-only version, I'm gonna assign a pyodide version. So I go here on the kernel launcher, and I'm just gonna say pyodide. And by the way, everything I show here is run on the platform, hosted platform, but you can do it on your own. So I'm moving here to GitHub, to this open source repository where you can build your own UI, just like we did. These are open source components, including the pyodide kernel. Cancel, I guess. So including the pyodide kernel, I'm just showing you. So now I can run this. I'm going to run it. Fine. I'm going to install Plotly. And maybe just to prove that this is not a read-only version, I'm just running this G typo. So it's failing. So is a real kernel, Pyodite kernel. And now I can grab some JSON files and run these cells and finally do a plot. So at some point, as I said, if I want to do some more advanced or simply to take control on this data frame and do some additional graph, I can do that, right? But by the way, there is a red output here. So Pyodite, which is, I didn't say that for those who don't know, but this is browser kernel in the browser. So I don't need any server. It's completely serverless. But it's also limited, right? Because as you see, maybe there are some errors, maybe, well, for sure, not all the packages are supported by Pyodite kernel. So I want to do more. I want a real kernel. I want a cloud kernel. First, let's do that with a CPU kernel. And what I'm gonna also highlight is this data frame, which I just created before. This one I just plotted. I'm gonna transfer it from the Pyodite kernel to the CPU kernel. So how I do that, I'm gonna say, launch a kernel. I can grab CPU or GPU. I can define like a time reservation because I do have credits for that. And I'm gonna launch a kernel. Right. I have no access to some data in the cloud. I do have access to some secrets, predefined secrets, so I can connect to any data source. I'm no more limited to that Pyodite issues. And I get back that data, PyStats data frame, and I can show you the 21st rows. Fine. I did nothing, right? I've been from read-only to Pyodite. I run a few cells, and now the data frame from Pyodite is in the cloud. And I'm going to continue. Typically what I run the cell. And now I'm just going to show you a query just for the fun. Here, this query is contacting Google BigQuery to grab another source of data of the download of the packages. And what I want to show you is the difference here. So funny enough, I compare here the figures from PyStat and I compare with BigQuery. It should be the same, but at some point, looks to me like PyStat feed has been broken, right? So this is like an outcome, and this is running in the cloud. So this is a kind of one way from left to right. And again, I can launch a GPU kernel. So let's say you want to do some more advanced, some prediction. I guess this example does not really require some GPU, but it's perfectly possible to do that. And now I do have a GPU kernel available. I can just, I'm gonna do NVIDIA SMI just to show you it's a real GPU. NVIDIA, sorry. That's it. I do have a T4 CPU. Right. I'm still going to take a bit of time for you to, sorry, I'm scrolling, to go to these guys. So I've been talking about React.js. This is a React.js application. Again, you can build your own with this repository. We do have docs, which explain you how to connect to that kernel. So it's a kernel, a GPU or CPU kernel in the cloud from JupyterLab, from VS Code, or from CLI. So I moved to this lab, and it's running on my localhost. So I'm going to just prove it. Right, localhost. I'm going to connect to those two kernels I have just created. So you see there is like credits which are burning because I said I'm ready to spend some credits, right? And now I'm going to just assign that Python CPU kernel to that notebook. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to grab that data frame just to show you it's there. So I think this is, where is it? This one. So it should be there. It will be there, right? So I was on my localhost. Now I'm going to quickly go to my VS Code. And to do that, I just copy the link for IDE for that kernel, and I just go here on my VS Code, and I use it. I guess this will be okay. No, sorry. Here. I hope you are still with me. So what I do, I just connect to that kernel and show you that exact data frame and final interface for the guys who love CLI. So I'm just listing here the CLI kernel, and I'm gonna connect to that. I just need to give the ID, but I think the first one will be picked if I don't give. So CPU should be picked. And again, right. And from there, I can do whatever I need. Again, the kernel is not on my laptop, it's in the cloud, and the data frame is not generated in the cloud, it's been transferred from a pyodide from my browser. Right, so I hope you have followed a bit the process. Happy to give you more time for a demo in a one-to-one. And if you want to try that, you go to datalayer.io/join to create an account, and you can pip install data layer. It's over here documented, pip install data layer, and you will be able to do everything what I showed you. So, and again, React application available open source. So thank you very much. I hope it's been useful.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, we're gonna have to move on really quickly without questions because we're still tight on time. The next person presenting is Zach Saylor. Zach, if you want to take over. Okay, yeah. Thank you. Thanks again, Eric. That was great.
Yeah, really, really sweet demo, Eric. Really impressive work. Yeah, so my name's Zach. I am at Apple, and I'm going to show just a feature that I've been working on that's really more of an experimental feature around AI and connecting to LLMs in the notebook. And so this is really kind of an early prototype, and I'll talk about kind of what I see long-term where I'd love to see this stuff land, but it's really just an exploration of some UX. And so in short, it's really just this magic button that I've added in Cell in notebooks. But what's going on behind this magic button is a whole lot of stuff. I'll try to explain as we go, but the basic user experience for this is you have something you want to type in a cell. In this case, I just wrote a prompt directly in a code cell. And if I click that button, you see it goes into a pending state. And when it's done, the LLM has produced something. So this is talking to an LLM in the background. I can see a diff in cell of what the LLM did on the code cell. I can give some, so I can, open and close that. I can give some feedback like, this was great, or this was bad, or even give it a longer response if we want. So if you want to collect some information from your user on how well your AI assistant is doing, that's all possible right there in Cell. And you can close and get rid of that. One of the other things to know is because this is in Cell and there's context baked into the notebook is a really rich document to give you information about code that you've run previously or output that you had previously or what might be coming next. Imagine you just go into an empty code cell and you click this magic button. You'll see that this actually looked at previous cells, realized that there was a data frame, and then auto-generated a plot for that data frame. And so the fact that we have cell data around it and we can both inspect that cell, read about previous prompts that were given, and so on, using an empty cell, the LLM can be given, it can make a decision on what it should write right there in Cell. And then there's just some basic stuff that we've added to this. So, for example, this cell has an error. If you click the magic button, that will identify that there was an error, and then it will go ahead and fix the error. And now it actually reran that cell. Okay. And then, there's even stuff like in little fun, fancy stuff, like if you go into a markdown cell and you click it, again, using context, it can start to write about cells. So here it just created a markdown cell above the code cell, rendered it, and it explains the cell that it sees below. So that's really just a high level of really what I was targeting here is building a user experience inside of notebooks that's really simple. It also allows you to have some sense of what the LLM is doing when it's affecting your code, for example. So I wanted an easy way for you to see a diff. And there's all different directions we could take this, but this is slightly different than the Jupyter AI space. The Jupyter AI is really more of a chat bot that you interact with side by side with your notebook, and this is really embedded in your notebook with you. And so I really see those two experiences go hand in hand, and so I'm hoping that what I did here, we can start to merge with the Jupyter AI project that exists and offer kind of a suite of experiences when interacting with an LLM in notebooks. One thing that's interesting about this exploration, and I should say that we do have a repo. I literally just pushed this morning. There's one commit and it has all the code. I just dumped it out there. So nothing like waiting to the last minute to get all that code out there. It's very experimental, and it won't even work out of the box in the sense of it depends on you writing an agent and talking to an LLM. So you have to write that connecting code. And so over the next couple of days, I'll try to push out a demo, a full complete end-to-end demo. But I just wanted to get the code out there as we start moving in the direction of maybe merging some of this UX with what's going on in Jupyter AI. But really the core thing underneath is this interacts with the LLM in such a way where the response from the LLM is a set of JupyterLab commands. So because we have this data-driven system for how to interact with JupyterLab's UI, which is a really clever design, you can actually leverage that from the server side where the LLM's running, or at least communication with the LLM is happening, and then have it dictate what the client does. So in this example where I showed a markdown cell, if I click that magic button in there, you'll see that it wrote markdown and then also executed the cell to render it. And so the way it does that is it's speaking JupyterLab command. And everything that you saw here, including the diff. So if I were to click this on the cell again, you'll see it'll generate a little diff below. Oh, I got to refresh my page because demos. That's all JupyterLab commands that are getting spoken in order to generate this diff. And so, yeah, so I want to just highlight that, we did something right with just using command-driven UI, and then it does really lend to the LLM some power that makes the experience really, really rich. And so I think that's it. I'll stop there so we can give folks more time to present. But my plan is to start moving this stuff towards the Jupyter AI project that we have in the JupyterLab sub-project and figure out where this kind of fits in the full suite of AI tools that we have. All right, thank you.
That's so cool. I love this. Yeah,
Thanks, Martha.
The next step is yeah. Oh, okay. I see Ian already shared his screen. So up next is Ian Thomas.
Yep, thank you. So yeah, you can see my screen. Thanks for confirming. My name's Ian Thomas. I work for QuantStack and I'm based in the UK. My background is actually visualization, so Matplotlib and Bokeh, but I've been doing a few interesting things in Jupyter for the last year or so. Now I'm going to talk about a new terminal in JupyterLite. So brief bit of background to JupyterLite. It's an unofficial Jupyter subproject, which is aiming to sort of reproduce the full distribution of JupyterLab, but based in the browser. So all the code is serverless, running in the browser. If you wanted to run some Python code, you'd be running the same pied-eyed Python kernel that Eric Charles was talking about earlier. Now, because we're trying to get JupyterLite to have all the full features in the end of Jupyter Lab, we're looking to add things that are currently missing, and this is one of the things that was missing. Excuse me. Now in Jupyter Lab, you can run a terminal that will connect to a shell that's running on the server. So that would be a full bash shell running on the server, give you the full sort of effect. Right. This is the equivalent work in progress for JupyterLite. So let's start a terminal. We'll just give you a brief run through the sorts of things we can do and show that it works. So obviously, just a bunch of files. The key thing is these files are the same ones that are identified in the file browser on the left-hand side. If we write something to a file, cat the file, sure enough, we've added the word hello. Let's open that up. Add a bit more text, save it. And now we cat it again. Sure enough, it's exactly the same file. So shared between the terminal and everything else that runs in JupyterLite. So that would include Python kernels and so on. We can, of course, remove that file as well. We can do slightly more interesting things. So let's, I've got a file containing the months. We can grep for Burr in months, and I'm using tab completion without thinking about it. There we go. I've typed it wrong. Grep months. Sure enough, we can pipe things. We can do fairly standard bash shell type functionality. If we run uname -a, this gives us an idea of how this is working. So this is running on Emscripten. So Emscripten is the name of the toolkit used to compile code to run in WebAssembly to run in the browser. We've got things like history, so history of command, so I can rerun whatever. Let's go for -2, rerun the uname command. Final thing, I have a file here that is a very small Loire script, and I can run that from our command line here. So I can get the factorial of 3 or 6 or 10 and so on. So this is very much a work in progress. So some things are not working that are easy. Some things that are difficult, like running Loire within the terminal, are already implemented. This is going to be work in progress for the next sort of 6 to 12 months. I guess we're sort of at the point where people can start to use it, but it is experimental, like I said. Okay, I guess I will leave it there. Thank you very much.
Nice. That was amazing, Ian. And we might have a little bit of time for questions. I hesitate to say that because, trying to keep time, but all right. Looks like the next person on the agenda is Mike Krasowski on Nebari.
Okay, let me begin. So the question is, how many kernels do you think there are for Jupyter? At this page on Jupyter Wiki, it is randomly being updated. And this table actually has 178 entries as of today. So that's a lot of kernels. And if you wanted to install all of these kernels, your launcher in Jupyter Lab would likely be pretty busy. But that's not the worst of it, because there is also a thing called nbconda kernels. And that amazing tool will create a new kernel for every environment that you create with Conda. So let's say you have a couple of kernels, a couple of Conda environments, you multiply that. And if that's not enough, there is also Conda store, because if you work in a team, you might want to collaborate and share the environments. So Conda store also has a Jupyter Lab extension, and in that case, you would not only see your environments, but also environments of your collaborators. So on Nebari, we've been facing this issue because understandably, the list of environments was growing for people, for users, and especially administrators. and people started asking questions, and the same kind of questions started showing up in the community. For example, requests to search in the launcher in JupyterLab. And while there were some existing solutions already, like JLab Enhanced Launcher, this really didn't fit so neatly with the conda store use case, where the environments had additional metadata. For example, the owner in case of collaboratively sharing the environments, and the user interface was not necessarily to our liking. So because Nebari is a Jupyter Hub distribution which integrates conda store and many other opinionated choices, I can share the link to this blog post in the chat if anyone is interested. We basically needed to create something better, more suited, and that's how JupyterLab Launchpad was created. So this is the GitHub repository. Basically what it does is reorganizes and rethinks how things could be organized in the launcher. Instead of having kernels as tiles, there is just a couple of tiles for different file types. And if you want to launch a kernel or a console with a specific kernel, we can do that from a table. We can search in that table. So say there are two tests, two namespaces. Your namespace is conda store specific, but there's way more information that you can show in that table. You can see the path, you can favorite, sort by most recently used, etc. So yeah, there is plenty of options available. Many settings, lots of cool stuff. And this extension is available. It benefits not only the use case of Nebari, it is fully compatible with other Jupyter Hub deployments or JupyterLab use cases. Another extension that I wanted to mention that we also built for Nebari, and which was used on SciPy this year for tutorials, is a gallery, which is somewhat related to NBGit Git puller, which and reusing actually some of the functionality, which allows you to quickly clone a predefined repository onto your file system. So each user would get a different copy, and that would show up, I think, in examples. So this is probably it. Yeah. And it's also compatible with this Launchpad. Yeah, so this is the inside of Nebari. I just wanted to also mention because Nick might be presenting something about JHub Apps, which is also a part of Nebari. And that's another extension that will be contributing to the community, is the integration with JHub Apps. So JHub Apps is a way to run different applications on Jupyter Hub using native proxy. So if I click here, I hope it will work. Yeah, this is a panel app running directly from Jupyter Hub and accessible from the app library next to JupyterLab or another application. So you can choose a framework. There is a number of, some of you might know Voila, of frameworks available. And that's the next one which we'll be sharing. That's it from me. Any questions?
I don't, but that it looks really great. Yeah, so the next person on the agenda is Nick Byrne, JupyterLab extension examples for building extensions.
Yeah, hey folks, I'm Nick. I work with Mike at Quantsite on things like Nebari, which is our open source data platform, and JHub apps. I guess hello to everyone. This is my first time joining this meeting. Great to see you all. So my presentation is going to be very short today. It's just explaining how I built an extension, basically with no prior experience, using the JupyterHub extension GitHub repo. So I'll just share my screen. So as I mentioned, like I have user experience, but I have no dev experience in JupyterLab. And all I had to guide me, apart from Mike, who's amazing, was this extension examples repo. And just using this repo, I was basically able to build my own extension, solving a small pain point that we had, and just wanted to kind of say thank you to all you folks who've worked on it. It's great, really good resource. So I'll just briefly show what the extension does. Previously, if we wanted to deploy an app on Nebari, our data science platform, we would create a notebook. Here is just a sample notebook of a panel dashboard. Then the user would have to navigate back to the Nebari or JHub apps homepage. They'd have to click a button. They'd have to fill out a bunch of fields, which might be a bit confusing, especially the file path. And then eventually they deploy their app. So the extension that I built was a small kind of quality of life improvement, where instead of having to navigate to a different page, the user can just click a button. Page is here. It automatically populates the file path, and away they go, and they can deploy their app, and they don't ever have to leave the notebook. So it's a very small thing, like a small quality of life thing, but it was really cool that I was able to build it just using the documentation and extension examples. So thank you to y'all. It was great. I'm looking forward to getting more involved in different parts of the community.
Thank you for sharing, Nick. I would be curious what your biggest challenges were. I guess instead of great to hear that you were able to do it though.
Yeah, like so it was a fairly small extension, so I'm kind of limited to like what I can say, but I did find the iLayout restorer a little bit tricky in terms of some of the side effects that were going on. So like maybe a small contribution I can make in the future is just add a bit more documentation around how the actual restorer works and see how I go from there.
Yeah, I could see that. Run into that as well. Well, we have some extra time if anyone wants to revisit some questions that they had from earlier. We are at the end of the agenda, so just want to make time for that.
I can quickly share one thing. I want to share with everyone in the chat a link to where we discuss this community call. And we hope to host it again in the future. So if anyone's interested in participating in the community lift of hosting this call or interested in presenting in future iterations, feel free to reach out using that discourse thread.
Okay, if no one has anything else that they want to say or ask, we could just end it here. Thank you for joining to everyone. I'm really glad that there was such a good turnout. And yeah, as Anna said, you can go to that discourse thread if you have any like feedback or if you're interested in hosting these calls. We're trying to do them more often. And yeah, and then yeah, the community calendar is also linked in the notes if you want to go to any other Jupyter calls